Hello, everybody. This is our very first Live with the Mayor segment. We've been doing Meet the Mayor's Minutes for the last several weeks, or the last few months, and we felt like it would be a great idea to invite some business and some community leaders in here, into the mayor's office, and just have a conversation about some of the things that you're doing and how they might impact all of our residents.
Yeah.
So we're very honored today to have Congresswoman Love here as our very first guest on the Live with the Mayor. I want to welcome everybody for joining us, for those that are looking at it now, and also those that have submitted questions, also those that might take a look at this later. All of these videos are going to be actually on our Facebook page and then also at our YouTube account. So again, welcome. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm actually really excited. This is going to be fun.
Yeah. Well, for some that don't really know you, maybe you can just start out and introduce yourself, your family, what things that you're comfortable sharing with. I think sometimes being an elected official, people feel like, oh wow, I don't really have access. And I've got to say, you genuinely are one of the most sincere people I've ever met, and that you're accessible. You've sent me text messages. I've been able to communicate with you on certain issues.
Yeah.
We'll talk about a few of those later on.
Yeah.
But for those that maybe don't know you very well or haven't had that chance yet to get to talk to you, what are some of the things? Who is Mia Love, and what makes you Mia?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here. I told my kids I would be doing this, and they were like, yeah, you're doing some stuff on social media. So they're like, don't embarrass me. So I guess that's the first thing you should know, is that I have 3 kids that are watching everything that I do on social media. I guess it's better that they're watching me than watching anybody else in Washington. But I have an incredible husband who is just the best partner that I could ever ask for. We've been married for 19 years. I am a devoted wife, devoted mother. I have an 18-year-old, a 15-year-old, and an 11-year-old. And their personalities are all different and great. My parents actually immigrated from Haiti to New York. I was born in New York City, and my parents escaped the Duvalier regime. So there was one dictator after another in Haiti, and my parents worked really hard and became U.S. citizens. And I'm, I have a unique perspective as to, the blessings that this country offers us because of all of the stories I would hear about my parents growing up, where they didn't have the same freedoms that I have, that we enjoy here. And so it's one of the reasons why I serve. It's because my dad told me on the first day of college, he said, Mia, we've done everything we could to get you here. You're not going to be a burden to society. You're going to use your gifts and your talents to give back. And so I hope that I have made my parents proud, and I certainly strive every day to make Utahns proud.
That's fantastic. No, it's a phenomenal background, and I've known that, and appreciate you sharing that with everybody here. Speaking of that service, you've now been serving in Congress. You were a mayor before that, right?
Yeah.
In Saratoga Springs. So maybe you can tell us a little bit of what you've been working on in Congress. What is it that you feel like maybe impacts Utahns, and especially maybe even particularly Riverton residents?
Right. Well, we get involved with quite a bit. We have done so much in our office. That's not even including the day-to-day where people will come in and constituents will come in and they have an issue, whether it's someone who hasn't received their medal after so many years, whether it's somebody, a vet, who has been working really hard to get access to health care that the United States promised them, or somebody who has trying to work out what's going on with their Social Security. The individual that comes into our office that we work with and solve their problems every day is probably the most important thing that I do as a member of Congress. But with all of that, just in this year alone, we've passed 4 bills out of the House of Representatives. 1 was signed into law. We've done quite a bit. I mean, if you ask all of the other members of the delegation, no one has done that much in such a short period of time. That includes ending taxpayer obligations to sexual harassment settlements.
Right.
That includes being able to fund our, I don't even know if you know this, but we did a land exchange that would be able to fund our schools here. We've got a lot of issues with funding our funding education, and so we passed a bill that would allow CITLA to transfer lands so that we could be able to use those to fund our schools here in the state of Utah. And we worked really well with with CITLA. We worked really well with BLM, and that's just a few things that we passed. Even the one that was signed into law by the president that is giving people more access to credit. So, you know, you may not know these little things, but when you're having a conversation about maybe expanding your home or starting up a business or, you know, trying to purchase a tractor to plow your fields, access to credit is incredibly important. And we've been losing access to credit, and we've been able to shift that back so that we allow banks to give people more access.
Yeah, that's incredible. That is, it's so vital in this economy to be able to have access to credit. And we see, speaking of the economy, we see how much that is just really, it's been taking off. I look at some of these numbers, and you see where we're at in terms of employment. Those not just participating in the employment sector, but the unemployment rate, historic lows. We're in just a phenomenal economy right now. I mean, what do you largely attribute that to? I know that you were really working hard on tax reform.
Right.
And
so
that
first of all, you can't have capitalism without access to capital. So that was really important for us, so that when we set the stage where our economy was doing a little bit better, people would have access to credit so that they could help grow the economy. But I would say that the biggest step towards the low unemployment rates and us seeing the economy moving again is the tax reform. Passing tax reform after not having done anything for 30 years is absolutely significant. We saw just companies, about 450 nationwide, that have been able to give pay increases. Utah, in the 4th district, on average, a family of 4 received $2,500 back in their paychecks. That makes, I mean, some people would call that crumbs. We call that, you know, maybe being able to pay off a credit card or pay a semester of school or purchase a car that takes you to and from work, or, you know, whatever it is, that means a lot. As a parent, that extra $2,000 allows us to be able to put our kids into a sport, or to be able to get them out so that they're not inside playing video games or, you know, doing things like that. It just means a lot to families. And if I get a chance to do more of that, I'm certainly going to do that. If you look at what's happening here in the state of Utah, we have Larry H. Miller. Gail Miller gave $1,000 to 10,000 employees as a bonus. We have Zions Zions Bank increased their employees' pay and have increased their charitable donations. So we're seeing that. And just even going into Walmart and having somebody say, hey, I got an extra $80 in my paycheck this month is awesome. I love that. I love hearing that, because that means something to people.
Yeah. So that's what you found, about $2,500 on average?
On average,
in your
a family of 4 in Utah's 4th district, yes.
Okay, wow. Well, that's, I would say as well, that's not insignificant.
I hope I get a chance to do more, because I think that we can do more. And when people, you know, there's one issue that a lot of people talk about, which is incredibly important. We need to continue to do this, is that a lot of people will say, you know, well, you've increased the debt. Well, there's a difference between taking money away from people and giving it to Washington so that they can spend it, or you can give it back to people so that they can take care of their families. And we've seen the results of that, and no one can argue. When you see, I mean, the proof is in the pudding. When you see the fact that our unemployment continues to plummet, when you see the fact that people are getting, they're getting pay increases, they're getting bonuses, and the economy is moving, I think we could be doing a lot more. We certainly have to do everything we can to cut spending in Washington. I mean, we're not one tax hike away from prosperity. We've taxed the American people enough. So I am ready to go in and make sure that we cut unnecessary spending in Washington.
Well, yeah, it's good to hear you mention that. That kind of leads into one of the questions, actually, that one of the audience has asked, and it was about the deficit.
Yeah.
So, that I think by this particular individual, and I'd say myself included, kind of view that as a high level. I don't know if it's overstating it, but a real high level issue.
Yeah, of course it is.
And even a national security one at that. We've heard people mention it. So what is your view then on the debt? How do we actually start to tackle that issue and make it so that there isn't such an overhang, if you will,
Right.
on the people of Utah and our residents?
Right. Well, Washington is very good at spending money. It's one of the things that we really need to do is the fact that Congress only controls a third of the budget, and that's really unfortunate because what Congress has done is they've given the power of the purse away. Most of the legislating really is done by bureaucracies that aren't elected by us, that aren't accountable to us, and they really have to be reined in. One of the projects that I've been involved in is the Article 1 project, which restores the power of the purse and the power of legislation back to Congress and restricts the White House to Article 2 of the Constitution. And I think that it's tenfold. It's not just the spending portion of it, but it's also the fact that people are so afraid, and they're so, including me, about what the White House is going to do because they feel that we've consolidated too much power in the White House, which Congress has done that. And we've got to make sure that we remove that consolidated power, restore it back to people so that they have more of a say. Members of Congress have got to roll up their sleeves and start being responsible for legislation that they bring up. And the other thing also is that we've sponsored a bill and will continue to sponsor it called One Subject at a Time. Right. It stops this 11th hour putting pork into must-pass legislation that gets passed in and increases our deficit. We can't do that. I think one of the things that's also frustrating is the fact that people and members of Congress are voting for bills that they said that they would never vote for because it's attached to something that they promised that they would always vote for. So if we start singling things out and start looking at bills one subject at a time, and that the subject of the bill has to be clearly stated in the title so that no one gets it allows for more transparency. It allows for these bills to be a little bit more simplified so that we're not sitting there reading 2,000 plus pages of legislation, and it really helps us keep control of what we're actually doing, what we're legislating, and bills stand on their own.
Absolutely. Yeah, I can see that. So the one page, you clearly address what the bill's about,
right.
But then also through the appropriations you mentioned. So
That's
that
right.
Are there some, in the past, you've had these CRs or continuing resolutions that just
go through.
passed with everything?
It's a horrible way of legislating,
Yeah.
is legislating through CRs. I mean, at one point, at some point, we have got to put our foot down and say, look, we have to have a balanced budget. We do it. I did it as a mayor.
Yeah.
We do it here. We do it in our homes. We're crying out loud, and it's in our state constitution. I mean, we have to have a balanced budget. And I've always said that if Washington behaves the same way we do as mayors of these cities, that we are, we go in and we represent people. They see what we're doing. It's not like we're trying to, fix one pothole on one side of the street and ignoring the others. Things get done here because, we're nonpartisan. We try and do everything we possibly can to address our constituents. And I think that members of Congress really need to start behaving the same way that our cities do. And I always ask myself three questions, the same questions that I did as a mayor. Is it affordable? Is it sustainable? And is it my job? And I think that if more people did that in Washington, we'd actually be a little bit more prosperous in this country, and we wouldn't have the debt that we have.
Well, let's hope so. And I think there's some good news along that front, though. I think I read recently where, if you don't do just one massive continuing resolution, there's about 11 bills or so, the appropriations bills, and for the first time, I think this year.
We passed 12 single appropriation bills this year.
That's
the right way to actually legislate, is through those appropriations bills, get them through the Senate. Things are very difficult to get through the Senate these days, but the House has done quite a bit of work, and we've been able to get things done for the American people. We just need to give a swift kick in the butt to the Senate and get them to work a little faster. But I do want to mention one more thing that I think is incredibly important. One of the things that I fought for is that whenever there is a need for funding somewhere else, they're always going to our senior citizens and try and take money either away from like Medicare or take something away. And the problem is my parents are retired. We've got people that have worked hard all their lives and have put money into Social Security or into Medicare, and there's a promise that that money would be there. And the fact that you have people over and over again that would take funds out of those and try and fund something else, I think is absolutely inappropriate. We need to make sure that we're keeping the promises that we made to people who put their hard-earned funds into Social Security, and not allow the federal government to continue to raid those accounts, or even Medicare to raid those accounts, because they don't have the option of going back to work again and starting all over. So I think that we need to make sure that we're addressing entitlements, because that is where the majority of the spending is being done. But we need to make a major shift in the policies, but still do everything we can to keep the promises that we made to our seniors, because they have worked hard to put those funds in there. It's theirs, and it shouldn't be raided by the federal government to pay for something else.
Absolutely. It's something you hear about. I have as well in the city, out campaigning or just interacting, interfacing with our public.
Right.
And you do have several of our residents, too, that live on fixed incomes.
Right.
And so as policymakers, we need to be cognizant, even down to the city level, of how those decisions impact those residents.
And I felt it personally, and this is something I wasn't planning on bringing up, but I want you to know that this is something that we've seen and felt personally. My husband lost his father at a very early age, actually. He was 65, and he passed away about 2 weeks ago. And seeing his Social Security and what that looks like, and the fact that he hasn't really lived as long, that all of a sudden it's just dealing with their finances. It's been horrible to see what the Social Security policies look like, and how it actually hurts people who have lost a spouse in their retirement. So I just think it's not fair, when you're forced to pay into something that it's not there for you.
Well, it's good to hear you talk about that and your positioning and how you're advocating for people in the 4th District here, and Riverton residents included. I did want to ask while you're here, because there was one Riverton resident and one Riverton family in particular that I saw you really go to bat for.
Yeah.
And maybe we could talk about that for a moment, and that is Josh Holt.
Oh, yeah.
So I thought it was pretty amazing.
I got text from you also about the family, yeah.
Yeah, and I got a text from you the morning of May 26th. I won't forget it. It was a Saturday morning, and, hey, we're going out to D.C. and we're going to get our boy back.
Yeah.
Right? And I know that Laurie and Jason were there as well. And what an incredible thing to be able to work through an issue that lasted, a couple of years in trying to secure his release and Tammy's release, and then being able to do that and not just keep that communication open with all of us that were so interested in Riverton and seeing that happen, but then even taking time out of your schedule to come on Memorial Day on a
Yeah.
Memorial Day to meet at the Salt Lake City International
Yeah.
Airport and be part of that caravan that saw Josh come home here to Riverton and ultimately to our Old Dome meeting
Yeah.
hall at the
Yeah.
park. So maybe you could talk a little bit about that and the efforts you undertook to see him
Well,
come home.
I have to say that there are certain things that there are different approaches that you can take. You can take this approach where you sit back and you try and put a wall up and you just systematically try and get things done. I actually get very personally involved. When we first heard about what happened with Joshua, Lori called me, and at that moment, after having a conversation with her, I said to Lori that I was going to do everything I can to behave in a way in which I would want my representative to behave if that were my son. That takes its toll on you because there were a lot of sleepless nights. There were a lot of phone calls where I would either get from the State Department or I would get from Lori, and my heart just drops. So you have to understand that, getting these phone calls, trying to, you have a mother that is just so incredibly concerned about what's going on with her son. Just making sure that I picked up the phone and talked her through it. You could even hear the president talk about the fact that I was relentless. Every time I saw him, I would say, "Hey, Joshua Holt, are we going in? What is going on?" It was, I have to say that the day that the president called and said, "Mia, we're finally bringing your boy home," I have to tell you that I felt as if it were my own family member that was coming home. The people that we serve aren't just constituents. They become your friends. They become your family members. They become your neighbors. I do get personally invested in that. And so Lori Holt, Jason, and our family, we're going to be friends forever. You can ask her. I mean, you don't go through that for 2 years and not build a bond of friendship. And if there's anything that I want anyone to know in the 4th District is that if they ever needed me, I would do everything in my power to help them out of a situation like that or any other situation that they have. I become very personally involved.
Yeah. Well, and I witnessed that, firsthand. That was an incredible thing, and in many respects, I think, a miracle.
A miracle, yes.
That he was able to come home. So it was great. I did want to ask you a couple of questions about just being a member of Congress.
Yeah.
And we see such a partisan divide right now.
Yeah.
It's kind of interesting being an elected official in a city. It's a nonpartisan election.
Yeah.
But in Congress, we see such a level of, I mean, it's just vitriolic at times. So why do you think that is the case, and what can be done in terms of politics to maybe have more of an engaging or civil discourse?
Well, there are several things that I've done in my office to make sure that we create an environment where there's actual dialogue. A lot of the legislation that I put forth actually comes from the 4th District. There are the things that we do and the thoughts that we have and the solutions to problems come from residents that have spoken to me and had dialogue. They would say, these are the issues that we have. I have some ideas of how to fix them. And a lot of these ideas are great ideas. So we've done a lot of open office hours where we allow people to come in smaller groups so that everyone can actually ask a question and have a dialogue with me and talk about an issue, talk about a solution, get things on my radar so that we can take care of that. We do a lot of teletown halls because there are people that can't get to a place, but they want to still be part of the conversation. They want to hear what's going on. We do a lot of employee town halls where we go in to major employees or small employees in our district and we speak to them on issues that are specific to their business or even get personal questions from employees. We do a variety of them. We want to make sure that people have not just access, but a dialogue, and they have a variety of dialogue and a variety of access to us. So those are, I think that that's important because it creates an environment where people aren't afraid to come in because they're frightened that they might be part of like some sort of 3-hour,
Yeah.
So this is it's worked and it's been effective, and it's a great way of doing things and adding respect and civility back into the equation. I've had people approach my daughter walking home from school in a way that was incredibly threatening. I've had people come to my home and take pictures of my kids, which I'm willing to be out there. I'm willing to be out in the public. I believe that children should be off limits, and we need to get back to the place where we can say, look, we disagree on specific things, and that's okay. We can talk about those things. Gosh, I disagree with my husband. Maybe 50% of the time, he'll tell you that he'll disagree with me, but we have a family together, and we love each other, and we make it work. And that's what part of this is about. We're not supposed to have a single party system. Right. We're supposed to be able to debate and talk about different ideas. And maybe, just maybe, if we're able to have a conversation where two adults get into a room and they talk about what they're for, maybe we'll witness American democracy at its best.
Well said. Well said. For those Riverton residents or say businesses that may want to reach out and have those types of telephonic meetings, or what's the best way for them to do that?
Well, they can always reach out to the office. We take names, and we do send out, if we're doing an open office hour, or if we're doing a town hall in a business area, or if we're doing a town hall, a teletown hall, we will send notices out. We'll actually mail out cards or notices letting people know when those are going to be. But if there's something specific, we try and do everything we can, not just open office hours, but actually if we get a list of people that have wanted to come in and actually speak to me about several things, we'll schedule those meetings. So we'll have people come in and talk about things, or even come in small groups so that everyone can kind of listen. But contact our office, and if there's anything specific that you want to talk about, or just hear in general. There are a lot of people that actually want to talk to me, but they don't want to be in a big group setting or even a small group setting, because maybe the issue that they have is something that is personal to them. Sure. So we work with them also, solve problems there.
Well, that's great. Really, one last question I can think of. I just, we took some questions from individuals, ranging from healthcare to net neutrality. I mean, what do you think are those big issues? A lot of the legislation you said you run comes specifically from the 4th District. Yeah. What are you seeing over the course of the next few months or years as the big things that might impact Utah and Riverton?
Well, I think, and you've seen me really push even against my own leadership on this issue, is immigration. I really think that for a lot of for our workforce, for our economy, and the right thing to do is to have good, comprehensive, and I would say fair immigration reform. It really just breaks my heart that some of these big, important issues people are too afraid to tackle. This job is not for the faint of heart. You can't be afraid to go out and tackle big issues. So you roll up your sleeves and you do it, right?
Right.
So I'm going to continue to push because I think it's incredibly important. I wouldn't be here if it weren't for the fact that I had parents that wanted to work really hard and wanted to see, their American dream. They worked their butts off, and I owe it to them, to Utahns, to Americans, to make sure that we have good immigration processes that protect Americans, but also create a uniform rule of naturalization. Mm-hmm. And that means, that's in our Constitution, by the way. That's a way in. That is a way in. So I think at some point we have to help people realize that everyone didn't grow out of the ground organically. At some point, all of our ancestors, or whether it's us or whether it's an ancestor down the road, actually immigrated,
They immigrated
here
here.
to the United States. So there's that. I'd like to do more with tax reform, and we're working right now in ways and means on making those individual tax cuts permanent.
Great.
Including, you know, the fact that we're giving a little bit more relief to families. I think that that's really important for us to do. We're doing quite a bit. There's a lot going on, but our office has really been engaged on all of the big issues, and we're going to continue to do that. I've worked really hard to gain the respect of my colleagues. I'm the only Republican member in the Congressional Black Caucus, and a lot of times I go to those members to help me with legislation, and so we're, you know, I've earned the respect of people on both sides of the aisle, and they know me as an honest person with a lot of integrity, and a lot of times they're looking to me to try and get my name on a bill, and so that means a lot to me. It means a lot because my vote is not just one vote. My vote actually comes with a bunch of other votes. So.
Well, that's great. We really appreciate the efforts that you're doing there in Congress for all the 4th District, but particularly for Riverton. And those are some key issues to be tackling here this year with immigration and tax reform. I know it's pretty amazing. You see housing prices and just the cost of things here in Riverton and throughout your district. And labor is a big input when it comes to those costs, and they are just going up and up.
You know, I have to tell you, I'm really proud of the West Side. You know, we are a growing community, and my job really is to not push the things that I want to see happen through, because I believe that you as a mayor, the mayor of Riverton, have the best solutions for the city. And I think that that's one of the biggest philosophy differences between me and other people that might be looking at this job, is that the best solutions are found at the most local level. And as a mayor of a city, those are the things that I realized when I was the mayor of Saratoga Springs, that my job is really to get out of the way. Individuals in your home, in their homes, they're the masters of their home. They're the ones that know their home and their situation better than anybody else. So my job is to really give them the opportunities to take care of their families, give you the opportunities to take care of your city. And like I said, we are a growing, thriving community on the West Side. We're hard workers. I think that's why people are moving here and moving to the West Side. And I love living here. I come back every single week. My kids still go to school here.
From
on the
Washington,
West Side.
D.C. You're
Yes,
back here.
my kids still go to school here. My husband still works here. Our home is here. I do not live in Washington. I come back because it's important for me to be and live in the place that I represent.
Well, thank you. Well, that is your representative in the U.S. Congress, residents of Riverton and the Congressional 4th District, Congresswoman Mia Love. Thank you very much
Thank you
for
so
being
much.
a part of this.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.